Can you just give me a big thumbs up if you can hear my voice? Okay, terrific. Okay, so let's just get straight into this. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mark Richardson. I used to be a community member for Bancor. I still am a community member. I count myself amongst this community. But after zealously approaching the key contributors to the project with some ideas that I had back in October to December of last year, I've since joined the team, and I'm proud now to count myself amongst its core contributors. And version 3 is probably the hardest I've worked on anything in my entire career. And I'm really excited to present it to you guys and explain some of its features. So before we get into that, I think it's really important to discuss what the Bancor ethos is and why we think that decentralized finance is something that is so critical to the space and why it's something that requires our support and nurturing. Essentially, cryptocurrency kind of started as a protest. I still think that it is a form of protest against centralized forms of control in finance. And I think Bitcoin really showed everyone just how well a distributed system can be. And certainly it's proven to us all that it has the momentum to sustain itself in terms of maintaining its valuation and supporting exchange between different users. But at some level, the onboarding ramp to get onto Bitcoin and to exchange Bitcoin for other cryptocurrencies still passes through centralized control points. It gets choked through centralized exchanges. And so this is why DeFi is so important. It's because until we have systems of exchange and of other financial instruments that are completely decentralized themselves, then the decentralization of the blockchains that represent those resources is kind of irrelevant. And we really are starting to see that there's this creeping influence of centralized actors kind of back into DeFi. We're really starting to see some of the old guard of finance start to introduce their own versions of DeFi. And they all have sort of a common theme in the sense that it's playing up to sophisticated actors and requires their own sort of brand of strategy in order to use effectively. And so at Bancor, we really reject this idea that finance is something that only the elite can perform. And we want it to be open and available to everyone. And for that, we need to make sure that our product is as easy and safe to use as possible. We have a long history of doing this. For a lot of people in the audience, I hope that you'll appreciate that Bancor really generated the fundamental technologies that power the rest of DeFi. So for example, liquidity pools, pool tokens, and the idea of a decentralized exchange are all described in Bancor's early white paper and have been largely adopted everywhere else in the industry. So that was in 2016 when we started developing those tools, and then we launched the Bancor Decentralized Exchange in 2017. And since 2017, we've really had an opportunity to kind of observe how decentralized finance performs out in the world, how regular users interface with it. It's been really nice to see the Ethereum space grow to the point where we can, okay, Lena's right, to grow to the point where we have sort of that critical mass that DeFi can really be the force for good and the force for change that we know that it can be. So some of the issues that we identified with the particular brand of decentralized finance that we embarked upon is twofold. One is that the pool tokens that Bancor introduced required one asset to be held alongside another asset. In the way that we first introduced it, this is always versus the Bancor network token, but I'm sure that many members of the community are now familiar with the Uniswap V2 and the SushiSwap versions of this. So for example, if you're providing liquidity with Chainlink, usually you're forced to hold Ethereum in the pool at the same time. And this means that your portfolio is somewhat restricted, okay? You can't hold just the assets that you want to hold. The other problem that we identified is impermanent loss. And this is partially because of that forced exposure to a token basket, that when the prices of the assets within that basket begin to deviate, that the pools can actually start to lose value. And this is something that I think has been a controversial issue within the DeFi community for at least the last 12 months, or at least has been an interesting focal point for the DeFi community of the last 12 months, partially because there have been some sort of impermanent loss apologetics that have made it difficult for, to discern the difference between fact and opinion when it comes to the financial performance of the AMM model. We collaborated on the development of something called IL.WTF, which actually helped to reveal for the first time for many users how dramatic this is. So you can see that there are people here losing $6 million, $800,000, etc. So if you use this tool, it will count how many liquidity positions that you have been involved with across several different dexes, and then measure what the impermanent loss was over that time period. What we really found was that a lot of users were surprised by just how catastrophic their losses had been. And in a way that's very upsetting, because it's not necessarily so disappointing that you lose money making a bad financial decision, or that there's been an opportunity cost with some activity or something like that. I think that that's fine, and we can all agree that that's you can't know the future, and so the outcome of a decision can never be known ahead of time. However, that users don't know that they're taking on this risk is totally unacceptable. And we're really trying to address this particular component of DeFi with the Bancor V3 release, but also with Bancor version 2. So the first time that we really tried to address these two different issues, the idea that you have to own a basket of assets and that you are exposed to the price deviation of that basket, was with the version 2s that were released in 2020. So for Bancor 2 and Bancor version 2.1, we introduced the idea that you don't need to hold more than one token in order to provide market-making liquidity. If you want to just hold Chainlink, you can just hold Chainlink and provide liquidity with it. And I think that this is still something that is largely unappreciated within the DeFi community, that if you do want to have a portfolio that is composed the way that you want it to be composed, then currently Bancor is the only way that you can maintain that level of composition and still earn trading fees on top of that. So we think that this is one of our greatest contributions to AMM designs, and will continue to be an extremely strong part of Bancor version 3. The other thing that we did with Bancor 2 was introduce the idea of impermanent loss protection. This is an insurance model that says that all liquidity providers on Bancor no longer have to contend with this loss that the pools can experience. And in a way, that makes Bancor the natural place to provide liquidity if you're a long-term hodler of a particular token. If you really believe that that token is the one thing that's going to outperform the market eventually, Bancor is the only DEX that says that you can have that token and provide liquidity with it as well, while being exposed 100% to its particular price action. And so that brings us to Bancor version 3. And I hope that many of you have seen the video that we released leading up to this live stream. If you haven't, I strongly recommend checking it out. Our creative director spent a long time on it, and I think it's quite beautiful. So let's discuss some of the things that are coming with Bancor 3. So we really think that Bancor's version 3 is going to be a completely changed model with regards to how not just DEXs are run on DeFi, but what does it mean to be a liquidity protocol at all? There are going to be 3 phases to Bancor's rollout. We're starting with Dawn, and this is going to progress through Sunrise and Daylight. We really have quite lofty ambitions with regards to what we think we can achieve with the new architecture. But everything that I'm going to discuss in this presentation relates only to the phase 1 Dawn rollout. So there are still other things that we are designing and that we are committed to delivering on that I'm not going to be discussing in this presentation, and that's going to be the subject to upcoming discussions, both with our community and the rest of DeFi. So perhaps the most important feature of Bancor version 3 is instant impermanent loss protection. So in the previous version of Bancor, we introduced this idea of time-vested insurance. And what this meant was when you're providing token liquidity to the protocol, for the first 30 days, you are essentially exposed to whatever impermanent loss that that occurs during that time period. And then this is kind of a cliff. And so after that 30 days, you immediately advance up to a 30% insurance. And then that slowly creeps up to 100% over the next 70 days. And I would say that this is, it's proven to be quite a good model. But remember, at the time that we released impermanent loss protection, we didn't really have a wealth of data on which to base this decision. And it turns out that it was actually overly conservative. Using data that we've gathered over the course of version 2.1, we're now convinced that we can offer impermanent loss protection from the moment that you start providing liquidity. There's a small caveat to this, which is going to be a cooldown period as you choose to unstake. But in short, you no longer have to wait 100 days. There's no 30-day cliff, none of that. The only thing that you have to do is announce 7 days ahead of time that you want to withdraw, and the protocol will grant you 100% protection. So there's going to be no more waiting for your impermanent loss to vest. The way that we are achieving this, by the way, is not just arbitrarily reducing the insurance vesting, but also we are introducing a different algorithm that is executed when users try to withdraw. And this means that our impermanent loss protection is going to be much more efficient for the protocol. It's going to result in a much better user experience in the sense that if users are expecting to withdraw a TKN position like Chainlink, that the likelihood that they receive their entire value in the Chainlink token is markedly increased. And more importantly, we are also offering support for what we call external IL protection. And so this is our ability as a community to collaborate with external token teams who may want to provide IL protection against their own liquidity pool in their own token. And from the discussions that I've had leading up to the release of the version 3 notes, I can tell you that this is something that a lot of new token teams would actually be very interested in doing. It's not the case that they want to force the Bancor protocol to wear this impermanent loss protection burden all by itself. And in most cases, they can't wait to contribute to that ecosystem and be a part of this force for good. Probably the most significant change with regards to the construction of the contracts is what we call the Omni pool. So before we can describe the Omni pool, I'm assuming that we've got some new users on the call who would like a refresher on how the liquidity pools on Bancor version 2 work. And essentially, for each token in the protocol, there is a specific pool associated with it. And each one of those pools has both the token it represents and the Bancor network token inside it. And one of the shortcomings for this is that when a trade needs to be performed, for example, in this case, buying Chainlink with Ethereum, the trader has to perform more than one token transfer in order to achieve it. So, for example, they need to transfer ETH into the ETH pool, and that causes BNT to be transferred out of the ETH pool. Then that BNT is transferred into the Link pool, and Chainlink is transferred out. So we call this a two-hop trade, meaning that there are actually 3 token transfers associated with it. One of the issues with this particular arrangement is that it is more gas intensive because you need to ping each one of these token contracts and send tokens between pools. In Bancor 3, we have completely overhauled how the network is organized. And so the BNT tokens now, rather than being present in each pool individually, they are now present in one central pool. And that pool interfaces with all of the other pools of the network. This is a significant change for more than one reason. One is that it means that if you are staking BNT in the Bancor network, you are now staking it simultaneously against every single asset that it contains. You no longer have to choose one particular pool that you are, essentially gambling that the volume on that pool is going to be higher than another pool. There's just one place to stake it. It's a much simpler decision. And we think that this is going to solve sort of some of the user-facing complexity that we were struggling with in version 2. But more importantly, it also means that when traders are interfacing with the pool, there are only 2 token transfers to process: ETH in and link out. Because all of the BNT is already in a single location, it's never sent anywhere. And so while BNT is still the universal numeraire, you still need it in order to know the price of ETH and know the price of Chainlink. Because it's not sent anywhere, we're now essentially operating on a one-hop system between any 2 tokens in the network. And this should result in markedly more gas-efficient trade experience for the traders at the Bancor network. And I think that it's going to be a pretty profound change for them. Infinity pools. So this is related to the Omni pool in the way that it's being reorganized. Infinity pools are designed to address one of the most significant issues that we had with version 2.1, which was how the single-sided staking was implemented. So I said earlier in this presentation that we said that you can stake a single asset, and that's true. However, the other side of that transaction was the protocol contributing its own BNT, and we called that a co-investment or a protocol co-investment. And so this meant that even though there was quite a large demand for impermanent loss protection and single-sided staking, there was this bottleneck where the DAO basically wasn't allowing itself to take on risk all too quickly, and understandably so. It's not clear how big a pool should be and how performant it will be. And so not suddenly opening the floodgates was a completely sound way to do it. But we have completely removed this risk in Bancor version 3. And so now instead of just having single-sided staking, we have infinite single-sided staking. So if you want to contribute any amount of a single token to the Bancor network will let you do it. And this is, I think, really important for growing our user base and really starting to activate some of the latent interest in some of the features that Bancor has been offering up until now within the greater DeFi community. I think that it's been frustrating but necessarily gated until now. But Bancor 3 basically throws open the gates and presents a much more welcoming face with regards to how much token liquidity users want to add. Okay, auto compounding rewards. A lot of the features that we've discussed have kind of obfuscated the fact that we've also invented a brand new type of pool token. And this pool token, without describing how it works, all you have to know is that it is absolutely single-sided. If you're providing Chainlink liquidity, the pool token that you receive doesn't know about the BNT side of the pool. And this allows us to do some really interesting things. And one is to introduce at the hardware level auto compounding rewards. So consider this example where someone is adding a bunch of tokens to a pool. In Bancor version 2.1, they would essentially collect liquidity mining rewards in some sort of abstract location, right? It's essentially a commitment from the protocol to award the user these funds. But then, in a separate transaction, you would then have to restake these rewards. And this has been an important part of the gamification of the Bancor ecosystem up until now. But we think it's time to sort of grow up and introduce a much more friendly, simple, and easy to use version of rewards. And so in Bancor version 3, you no longer have to perform any transactions at all. As long as you hold the pool token, its value with regards to the accumulation of liquidity mining will just auto compound. You don't have to put it in a staking contract. You don't have to send it anywhere. You don't have to spend any gas at all. The rewards just compound on that pool token without you having to do anything. It really is the most set and forget solution for liquidity mining rewards, we think, anywhere in DeFi. Now, what's really important about this is that the way that that pool token is designed, the thing that gives it that power to auto compound is generalizable. It's not just the BNT side of the pool that can do this. We can also do it on the TKN side. So imagine that just like these token projects wanted to help the Bancor community create stable liquidity for their token by assisting us with the impermanent loss protection, they may also want to assist us by providing TKN rewards for their users. And if they do want to do that, because of the nature of the pool token, it will also be auto compounding. And so we've really got this entirely out-of-the-box solution for new token projects that are trying to establish a reliable source of liquidity in the market. And, compared to some of the other auto compounding products that we know exist, so like YieldYak and AutoFarm and other things, those auto compounding products, they're not truly auto compounding. There is still a stake or a claim, sell, and restake component that helps those things to auto compound. Whereas the auto compounding liquidity mining rewards technology that Bancor has invented is intrinsically auto compounding. That there is actually no transaction that needs to occur for this to actually happen. It has been a long time coming. And those of us on the call who have been a part of the community calls over the past year will know that getting onto one of Ethereum's layer 2 scaling solutions or a competing layer 1 has been a priority for us up until now. So Bancor has always existed on Ethereum, right? It is a native Ethereum protocol. We've been there since 2017, but we've also seen the ecosystem kind of grow with us. And we're really starting to look at some of these new blockchain environments start to settle down. The optimistic and zero knowledge rollups are extremely interesting. We know of many other EVM compatible layer 1 solutions that we might go to. But then there's also the non-EVM compatible solutions. Now, one of the reasons why this has been delayed, right? Why we didn't want to launch onto some of these other chains too early is that the Bancor version 2 contracts weren't entirely portable. And so really the simplification that we get in Bancor 3, which also reduces the gas on Ethereum layer 1, is also going to mean that we can more efficiently manage the porting of our system to alternative chains. So yeah, in summary, the features that we've revealed on this call today, and that were mentioned in the video, hopefully that you've seen, is the auto compounding rewards, which is actually hardware auto compounding. It's not an extra contract on top of the Bancor network. It is built in, and the fact that can be performed on both BNT and TKN. Impermanent loss protection now occurs from day 1. You no longer are exposed to a 30-day cliff or a 100-day vesting period. You're just protected from the moment that you contribute liquidity. The lightweightness of the contracts now mean that we can move multi-chain more efficiently. And so I'm looking forward to seeing precisely what the community thinks is the most desirable new environment to launch Bancor on. I have my suspicions of what they're going to decide, but I don't want to speak for them. We should wait until the DAO makes the decision. The Omni pool means that there's now a single place to stake BNT, and that token swaps can happen in a single hop, and the whole organization is much more gas efficient. And infinity pools mean that the protocol is now going to accept unlimited liquidity from users. There's no longer this bottleneck where we had to turn people away despite them wanting to contribute to the TVL of the protocol. And I think one of the most interesting things is that we are developing a one-click migration tool in order to migrate liquidity from version 2 to version 3. But this one-click migration tool can also be used to migrate liquidity from any DEX to version 3. So after the Bancor 3 rollout is initiated, the liquidity providers on all of our, all across Ethereum will have the same opportunity to migrate their liquidity to version 3 as the current Bancor user group does. And so we think that, with the particular set of features that we've revealed here today, that the offering at Bancor is just going to be, hugely attractive to all of those people that have been learning about how costly their impermanent loss has been on competing protocols. So we're really excited to see just how that increased capacity through the Bancor Infinity pools is going to merge with something like a one-click migration, not just from version 2, but from any liquidity protocol. And remember, this is just dawn. All of the features that we have discussed today are going to be available and launched early in the first quarter of next year. But the features that we've discussed today are also sort of the ones that we get for free with the new token, with the new contract architecture. These things, like the reason why we've reorganized the contracts this way, is actually to achieve something much greater, right? Something much more interesting. And you're going to start to see exactly what we have planned when we get to the point where we can start to discuss the sunrise component of the Bancor 3 launch. And then, of course, after that, daylight, which will be another set of features after that. So there's still so much to look forward to. I hope we have your confidence. We've been working really hard on this, and it's been so great to see the community respond so positively. And I think, with that, we're going to start moving to questions. Some of these extra slides are in here specifically for the Miami conference. So if you're going to be with us tomorrow when I present this presentation in person, just know that you can come to our booth, get yourself checked for IL. We're going to teach you about practicing safe DEX, and we're going to be distributing these popes to anyone that comes and performs those tasks. And those popes are going to be exchangeable later on for limited edition Bancor condom NFTs, right? And these are going to have the same sorts of traits that people love on OpenSea. So there's going to be, rare artifacts associated with some things, ribbed for her pleasure, lambskin, flavored, that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of a fun, it's a little bit of a joke, but at the same time, we think that it really is doing great work in spreading awareness for the types of things that we think are threatening the continuity of DeFi. So this is the prototypical NFT model that we're going to be basing it off, but we haven't really finished on the designs. I think that they're going to look very special in the end. And if you are in Miami, I want to invite all of you to come to our LP's Paradise party featuring Elderbrook on December 1 at Palapa. And so if you need more details on how to get into this, we've got an RSVP list, and Nate Hindman will be happy to share that with you. And so that is the end of the presentation. I really hope that this has been informative, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the discussion. I'm hoping that we've sorted out sort of the feedback issues.
Thanks, Mark. Can you guys hear me okay?
Nate, can you chat?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And I don't think there's any feedback.
I don't see any other people on the stream.
I can see Arthur. I can see DeFi down.
There we go. Okay. There. Maybe can we change the view so we can see everyone's face?
Yeah, do you want to put everyone up? So like this.
And if everyone wants to throw on their camera too? Hey guys. Hello, hello. All right, great. Well, thanks for that, Mark. And sorry everyone for the beginning. We had those looping issues. Hopefully they're solved now as people unmute. But I wanted to get the chance just to intro and say that this is kind of the first of many presentations we're going to give on V3. We've just dropped the details. There's a lot in there, as I'm sure you guys realized. So we will be hosting way more Q&As and panels. And so this is just the beginning. But we're going to try to answer as many questions as we can towards the end. Before getting to the panel, I want to just give intros to everyone because I didn't have a chance to do that in the beginning. So Mark, who just spoke, is our head of research at Bancor. And then you see Yudi and Leonid there. Yudi is the chief architect and co-founder at Bancor, and Leonid is the CTO over at Bancor. So he's behind most of the coding of V3. We also have our esteemed guests on today. ChainLinkGod, who is, as many of you know, a community ambassador from Chainlink. DeFi Dad from 4RC, who's an investor and epic DeFi educator in the space. And Arthur from Defiance Capital. All three, ChainLinkGod, DeFi Dad, and Arthur, you guys have all been really solid Bancor supporters for quite some time. So really awesome to have you guys on. Last but not least, we have Tyler, who's a big figurehead in the community. So excited to have everyone on. Yeah, so thanks so much for joining, guys. Do people want to try to unmute, say hello, just to make sure we're not going into loop hell again?
Hi. How do I sound? Is that good, guys?
You sound terrific.
Excellent.
Perfect. Cool.
Hi, guys. Testing.
Hello. Hey. Thanks, Arthur.
Hey, everyone.
Hello, ChainLinkGod. Great. All right. So we can hear everyone. Awesome. I would love to just go around the group real quick and get first reactions. Some of you guys have had a little time to marinate on the features and V3. Would love to just go around the group and see if folks have sort of initial reactions. One also thing you could comment on is, which feature, I guess, excites you the most, or do you think is most bullish, or any number of features? DeFi Dad, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I actually was I was tweeting during the presentation. I was looking back at V2, and I've been using single-sided LPs for the past year. So, I can attest, like, I've been in a number of LPs for almost an entire year. And part of that was just because the single-sided LPs is just a better experience. And I've said that all along. I've always tried to disclose, like, I now have BNT because I've earned it as an LP, but given the fact that I wasn't really as active in 2017 and still a noob, I think, in 2018, I'm not an OG in Bancor. So I kind of say that coming purely from a user perspective. What's really impressive to me about V3, the stuff that I was most excited to review is, so when I was at Zapper, we had integrated single-sided LPs, but the problem is that everybody wanted to participate in them. So there was limited space, and now there's unlimited space. So that solves one obvious bottleneck of hey, do you want to try single-sided LPs? Oh shit, it's all filled up. That problem is solved. I think the other thing, and then I want to let someone else comment on the rest of these features, but the other thing that got me excited is, so you used to have to wait 100 days. So I would just, tell friends or others, in tutorials, hey, think of it as every day you gain 1% more protection. That's no longer the case. You instantly have impermanent loss protection, and then it's just a 7-day cooldown. So, these are things that really stuck out to me as a user. Also, the rewards auto compounding, I would always be hesitant to claim my BNT because it just was a lot of gas. Whereas now I'm auto compounding that. All right, I'm going to shut up because I'll fire off all the features here if I don't stop. So
all good. Well, actually, DeFi, I just want to hone in before we move on to that, because we were talking about this yesterday. There's other auto compounders in the industry. I mean, do you use other auto compounders?
When you say that, do you mean like a yield aggregator, like a vault, something like Yearn?
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, so like there are there are these products where it's like if you contribute this one token, and so I think Tyler had a really great example where there's a yield yak product where it will auto compound AVAX and Farmer Joe for you. But it's important to realize that in that case, the Farmer Joe is the thing being rewarded. And so the auto compounder, it's forced to sell that for more AVAX in order to recontribute that back and kind of auto compound that way, because Farmer Joe doesn't have a single-sided token exposure component. But that's not what we've built. What we've built is an actual auto compounder, right? Where the token rewards itself just grow naturally as a part of your LP position, rather than requiring to be sort of emitted from some contract and then restaked in the Bancor DEX. So it's a different process. There is no behind the scenes sale of one token for another one in order to recontribute it. It's a much more natural, much more gas efficient, simple, presentation, I think.
Yeah, I want to point out, and I would wait for a tax professional to look at this, but as I was like reading the blog and the documentation that you guys had provided, it begs the question whether, if I'm in an LP now, a single-sided LP in Bancor, as I'm earning these rewards, am I not triggering a taxable event, which has always been a question that has plagued us all in DeFi, and I'm obviously focusing on those of us in the US, but that's huge. If we can get an opinion from tax professionals, and there's more of a consensus. So, anyways, that it's another sort of innovation under the hood that I would say as a user, it's just simple. I'm just gonna like look forward to like yield yak you mentioned on Avalanche. I'm just gonna look forward to my position growing. So simple is better. Less clicking, no gas to pay on that. That's my ideal sort of farm. That's why I've been in these single-sided LPs the past 12 months.
Yeah, and it's it's good for the project too, because they're not having their tokens automatically sold in order to get restaked. So and also, a lot of those auto compounders, you have to give a percentage of your yield, like upwards of 20%, where Bancor is not taking a cut on that. So cool. ChainLinkGod, Arthur, any sort of initial reactions when you first saw the features in V3?
I'll start first. Yeah, I think that overall it's just a massive. It actually addressed all the pain points that was identified in Bancor V2. Like the impermanent loss protection can be shortened to like less than 100 days. This has been partially resolved. And then the double-sided reward part, where there is a lot of the other protocol, the TKM protocol, that want to collaborate with Bancor. It was always quite challenging for them to offer a double dipping pool, which I think is quite common nowadays in quite a few other AMM DEXs. And the whole Omni pool, which is kind of like a single warp design that the new Balancer and Sushi Trident are using as well. So I think that overall this is a very good the sum of the part innovation that just address multiple issues, or like the some of the things that Bancor can be improved on simultaneously, which I think is great. Like it's a good sum of the part improvement, which I'm very excited about. And I think most importantly is, I think if this is just like the first version of the V3 improvement, I'm very excited to see what the daylight and what is it? Daybreak will bring. So yeah.
Yeah, sunrise and
Yeah,
sunrise
sunrise.
is phase 2 and daylight is phase 3.
Yep.
And yeah, I would echo that a lot of this part of this launch was solving these pain points, reducing the friction, and really laying the groundwork for what's to come. We're not yet talking about what is in phase 2, but it is very, very exciting. And I think that the real groundbreaking innovative work will really start to show in phase 2. But in this release, it's just going to make things way easier, way cheaper. So yeah, cool. ChainLinkGod, anything to add about sort of initial reactions when you saw this, and also just maybe your experience with Bancor in the past? I don't know if we've ever spoken about it personally, but just to understand kind of how you've used the system in the past.
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of the thoughts of Arthur and DeFi Dad in terms of it seems like there's a lot of just solid UX fixes. It's taking a good model for a DEX and effectively adding components to help refine it effectively. I think the most significant addition in my mind is definitely the infinity pools. In terms of when people come to me and ask me, hey, I want to earn yield on my link, where do I go? And in terms of just risk over reward, I'm never going to go or suggest anything that has impermanent loss. And most other yield farms are usually not very long lasting. So my go-to answer is usually Bancor. But the response back is usually, well, it's full. So it's like, you can't do that. But in this case, I can actually recommend people to deposit in Bancor, and they'll actually be able to deposit, begin earning yield. And I think that's a significant addition. And kind of a trend I've noticed with this release is it feels a lot more automated effectively, where rewards are automatically compounded. And I think that's significant both for the potential tax implications, but also the gas implications as well, where you're able to boost your yield significantly more and you're never draining your ETH balance, which, it's not impermanent loss, but you could effectively, in a way, it is a loss effectively if you're going to be continuously trying to compound your gain continuously, especially if you're a smaller token holder. And of course, got to plug Chainlink Keeper's integration as well for more automation of the token or the burning as well. So it feels like it's taking a lot of the difficulties away from the users, not just in terms of impermanent loss, but a lot of the automation and even being able to contribute and participate in the pool at all. So it just feels like a large focus is just a lot better of a user experience. And I think, each one of these on their own is pretty significant, but all of them together, I think it just creates a lot more of a refined user experience. That's really what stood out to me.
Adding to what ChainLinkGod was saying there, I think that the reason that the UX is better here is that you've taken away a lot of the decision making. So in V2, I would look at BNT across all the different pairs and think to myself like, oh wow, like where should I stake this? And like, is this pool going to continue to pay out more in terms of trading fees? And that was, it's a question that's common in DeFi. But especially when we're on Ethereum mainnet, I mean, that's a question that can eat away at all of your profits if you start moving money around too much. So what you guys are calling this Omni pool is basically I just go in and I deposit BNT. I don't have to worry about which one of the LPs is earning more. And I want to call out, like, I know we got to talk about whether or not that was the right decision, whether you should allow folks to continue to choose. And I think that more users will benefit from not having to make that choice and just sort of spread, think of it as like sort of like socializing the wins across all the different LPs. So that's something I'm really excited to sort of watch play out. I think this is a very friendly newbie product, which is nice. If someone's new to DeFi, and once this goes live on an L2, an Ethereum L2 or a EVM compatible side chain, I'm stoked for that because then they can obviously save on the gas. I actually had a question for you guys, though. This was from someone in the comments. They asked, if you migrate from V2.1 to V3 and the V2 pool would be compensating impermanent loss in BNT as it does today, will you get the original token? Let's say let's say I'm staking Ether. Will you get the Ether back instead in V3? Is that something you guys can answer right now before the one-click migration is live?
Yeah. So the way that the impermanent loss protection algorithm works on version 3, it should translate from your original position. So let's say that if you've added liquidity to a pool with catastrophic IL, and it's all but certain that you're going to be getting a partial reimbursement in BNT on version 2. After you migrate, the chances of getting the token back and getting no BNT are improved, right? Because we move the position, not the tokens necessarily. So we should, So especially if you're a smaller liquidity provider, migrating to version 3 will mean that it's much more likely that the improved algorithm will be able to reimburse you entirely in the TKN that you provided without having to mint BNT for it.
And just to add to that too, if you're in a pool where you don't have 100% protection yet, a V2.1 pool, and you migrate to V3, your impermanent loss protection is accelerated to 100%. So yeah.
I saw another question there. I think you just addressed it then. That was like, if you are beyond 100 days already in V2, will there still be a 7-day cooldown period? It seems like there won't when you migrate to V3.
Yeah, no, the 7-day cooldown period will affect all withdrawals. So even if you're over the 100-day period, that 7-day cooldown applies to everybody. And this is a sort of a necessary component for the security of the system. And so, yeah, it affects everyone. It affects everyone equally. But yeah, I don't think that it's going to be too much of an issue, because one of the issues that we had on version 2.1 that we haven't discussed is that after if you did withdraw from a pool with significant IL and you did receive some BNT reimbursement, that BNT was locked for 24 hours. And so that meant that actually you were kind of exposed to BNT for at least a day in some cases when you're withdrawing. But on version 3, after that cooldown period, the IL is calculated as you withdraw. So the second that all of the funds end up in your wallet, it's the total value of your LP position, right? Rather than half of the, being held for 24 hours or something. And this was, it was a rare, it was a marginal issue, but still a big one, right? Because if we're telling users that their full, the full value of their LP is always protected from IL, it was true. But then that 24-hour period where they can't do anything with their BNT meant that it was kind of, for some people, it meant that they missed out on some price action or something during that time period after the withdrawal. But in this cooldown version, after the cooldown's done, as soon as you click that withdraw button, you get everything all at once, right? There's no 24-hour lockup afterwards. And I think that it should, combined with the fact that no one has to wait 30 days or 100 days for their IL protection, combined with the lack of the 24-hour lockup afterwards, more than compensates for the potential inconvenience of now having to wait another 7 days after your 100-day vesting period. But I'm keen to hear from the community if they really do think that this is that much of a blocker. In my experience, we did a lot of market research in trying to develop these kinds of things. And it really didn't seem like anyone would be too upset by it. But if someone has strong feelings, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to discuss it with you.
Awesome. I keep reading the comments, and yeah, I would say the one thing that you guys definitely fixed there, kind of like what Arthur was referring to earlier, is that was a rare issue, but I'm glad that's fixed. That if I'm going to withdraw, there was a chance that, in other words, like I wasn't being compensated if I'm looking at exactly the amount of tokens that I'm expecting to get back, that what I staked, just because of price fluctuations. So that's awesome. And then just for what it's worth, looks like a lot of folks that have been in 100 days are interested if there is a shorter cooldown for them. But otherwise, yeah. Earlier I said something incorrect. There is a 7-day cooldown for everybody at this point once V3 goes and goes live. So just clarifying something I said there that was wrong. Arthur, ChainLinkGod, what do you guys think in terms of how this fits into the DeFi 2.0 narrative? I'm kind of curious how you think of DeFi 2.0 since it's been a talking point lately.
I think that a lot of the DeFi 2.0 innovation is actually building on top of the foundation of the so-called the DeFi 1.0. God, I hate this term. Yeah, I think that for Bancor is less on that, but more like really like building, iterating and building on top of the previous feature and improving on top of it. And I do see pretty competitive against some of the so-called DeFi 2.0 feature. I think there are someone who pointed out that there are some similarity between this and Tokima. But I don't think Tokima is live yet, the feature. So I mean, let's see which one go live first and which one get the more usage and benefit the user more. Yeah, I think that's my view so far.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree. I think DeFi 2.0 is a little bit of just kind of a meme term. I think it's just kind of a newer wave of DeFi protocols, which is fine. But I kind of see Bancor here being more of like a refinement of a solid foundation that already exists within the DEX space. So I don't think you necessarily need anything more flashy beyond that. But I think with the solid foundation that's already been built, this is effectively like a refinement upon it. It's not tossing things out the door and making things more complicated in terms of market making on DEXs, but actually going the other direction than most other projects and making it even simpler. It's kind of, I see it more focused kind of on the end users providing liquidity rather than just strictly the other protocols, which I feel like a lot of projects now are kind of focused on protocols, how do they get liquidity? But I think sometimes the users kind of get forgotten in the mix there, where they're often the ones providing the vast majority of liquidity, and they should be taken care of both in the gas fees they have to pay and just auto compounding and the dual-sided rewards, which I think that's like a key differentiator. I think that's a good direction.
I have a question, which is that ChainLinkGod, before you mentioned that you don't recommend to when link holders come to you and look for a place to stake, you don't recommend pools that are exposed to impermanent loss. But the vast majority of liquidity, or I would say the majority of liquidity in being staked inside AMM pools is in unprotected pools. And we're constantly scratching our head about why users expose themselves to that risk. Is it they're just not aware of it? And usually what we hear back is, well, there's rewards. Although it's sort of an inexact science, typically people think that the rewards that they receive in some of these pools makes up for impermanent loss, even though sometimes it doesn't. So I guess my question is, now that Bancor, and up until now, we only dropped BNT rewards, and now we'll support third-party token rewards. So you can get dual-sided rewards on our pools. Now that anyone can get these IL-free dual-sided rewards, I'm wondering why they might provide liquidity anywhere else. I know that's kind of a ridiculous question, but is that really the sort of main reason that people are still exposing themselves to IL risk is to get those rewards? And Tyler, you're quite a degen yourself, so happy to hear from you on this too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't necessarily, like you said, even realize that they're actually exposing themselves to a loss. They see the fees generated and they see the subsidy rewards on top. And, if it's a really degen farm, sometimes it could be worth it if, the market moves the way you want it to, where it's kind of the two assets are correlated. But a lot of times it doesn't really work out that way. there's not really that many great dashboards to actually track this. So ultimately, the professional market makers end up doing fairly well, and then the retail who they just want to earn yield, they deposit and they don't necessarily understand the risk that they're actually getting under. So I think there's kind of a bit of like a network effect to come over in that regard, just in terms of like where the volume is routed to in terms of like aggregators. But I think once there's like an inflection point reached, that it will make the most sense for most users to go towards an IL free solution. I think it can kind of be bootstrapped with rewards, and then fees kind of catch up over time to kind of overcome that. But I think a lot of people just don't even necessarily understand that they're being exposed to the IL risk, or they have some strategy set up and they're constantly moving their funds around because they're able to operate at that size. It's hard to do that on Ethereum if you're not, monitoring this 24/7 or have an automated solution. But I think for the vast majority of users, it's much, much simpler to just deposit in a single side pool and get IL protection, and then not even have to think about it for the next couple of years effectively. I think that's kind of an obvious solution, but I think, there's kind of a network effect that will inevitably have to be kind of overcome. Network effect, and then just brand recognition. People know different dexes, and they just prefer it because they like, they have a reputation attached to it, but those that can change over time quite rapidly. So I think it's kind of an obvious solution to go towards more of the IL free solution for the vast majority of people.
So I want to take some of these questions that DeFi had. Thanks for posting those. I'm scared of this looping thing happening again, so I'm not looking at the main YouTube. But I see that people are asking the implications on BBNT, if at all, by V3. Mark, is that something that you can answer?
Yeah, I mean, let's dive into it. So presently, you are issued VBNT 1-to-1 with BNT when you contribute to the protocol. And so, this has resulted in some interesting situations, especially the fact that if you've got BNT staked, you don't actually need to have your VBNT in order to claim rewards on it. VBNT in Bancor version 3 is issued 1-to-1 with the pool token. Right, and so this means that the VBNT price, if we say that that there is a peg or a unity to the price, it will no longer be to BNT, but it will be to the BNT pool token, and that BNT pool token is always appreciating with regards to BNT, and so VBNT will only become arbitrageable when its price exceeds that of the pool token. But more interestingly, because you need to burn your VBNT in order to withdraw the pool token or liquidate your pool token, and that the auto compounding mechanism is now associated with the BNT pool token. It means that if you don't hold your VBNT, you're no longer liquidity mining, essentially. And I think that that's a pretty dramatic change for a lot of people. And this is actually the first time that we're talking about this publicly. Because I think that it is going to be something that the community does have to wrestle with. It's important that no one knows until everyone knows, and so this is that time. And so that is how the VBNT component is going to operate. But otherwise, everything else is the same. The Bancor Vortex will continue to do great work in servicing that buyback mechanism in a roundabout kind of way, but a cost-efficient way. So that's going to remain the same. And it's important to realize as well that with the infinity pool design, anyone who has VBNT that wants to contribute to that really awesome VBNT pool that's currently, bottlenecked, extremely competitive, will now be able to provide liquidity there as well. So I think that this is going to take some of the frustration out of how that system has worked up until now. But otherwise we'll continue to work in exactly the same way that it has.
So Mark, with auto compounding, the liquidity mining rewards in V2.1, you're getting BBNT. How is that changing in V3 exactly?
Yeah, so in version 2.1, the liquidity mining rewards, remember, are not really accumulating on your position, but they're accumulating in a contract. And you have to run the function on that contract, which then distribute BNT rewards to your wallet. And so those BNT rewards, then when you restake them, you get VBNT. But in version 3, you just stake BNT in the protocol once and receive a pool token for that contribution. And the number of BNTs underneath that pool token, they're the things that compound, right? So like when you come back every day to check how many BNTs is my pool token worth, that's the thing that's increasing. And so if you no longer have the VBNT, it means that you're no longer able to exchange that pool token for the BNT that it represents. So it could be that there are going to be secondary markets and things for these pool tokens. I imagine that there will. But yeah, that's really the key difference, is that your rewards accumulate on the pool token rather than in some other location that gets distributed to your wallet. And that's the component that's so special. That's the thing that makes it auto compounding. It's the thing that means that it's gas free. All of these really nice features that makes it generalizable to the TKN side, all of that kind of stuff. But I think with regards to BNT rewards on the TKN side, which is obviously something our community is super interested in, we incentivize the Chainlink pool, the Ethereum pool, the stablecoin pools, and so on. All of these types of liquidity mining programs, these are mismatched tokens, right? So if we're using BNT to incentivize Chainlink, we basically still need to have this element of sending BNT to some other place. So I think we're still going to use some version of the liquidity mining contracts standardized by Synthetics, and that's going to allow us to offer liquidity mining on the Chainlink pool in BNT. But for some of these other tokens, like AP1, for example, might be interested in providing liquidity mining rewards, or MPH does a lot of liquidity mining stuff. Bondbridge, who knows? Like all of these projects that we have a pretty good rapport with may want to provide liquidity mining on their own token, and that means that we don't have to use BNT to incentivize them, right? The projects will do this on their own, and it will be the same experience for those users. All they need to do is stake the token and receive a pool token in return. And as long as they have that pool token, the liquidity mining rewards will just accumulate underneath it. And so that's really we think that this is a much better experience for everyone, right? The liquidity mining and all of the stuff that goes on in DeFi, it's kind of really active, I would say, right now. Like it requires someone with a deep knowledge, or at least a high level of commitment to learning how all of these things work and researching them and making sure that they're not going to get scammed or something by providing their tokens to something. And so for Bancor to just automate all of this, I think is kind of as many others on the call have already alluded to, is really servicing that brand pillar that we want to be the simplest, safest thing to do in DeFi, right? It's easy to use, and you don't need to explain to someone the intricacies of how it works. It's just stake a token, get liquidity mining rewards, and that's the end of it. I hope that's kind of covered everything, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm getting a lot of questions regarding the Infinity pool.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's really excited. We're seeing that there's going to be multiple earning strategies.
Yeah.
Can you give us any hint? Is this like baked in? Is this like a wired baked into the V3? Do you know what kind of strategies you're going to be exploring? Is this going to be an experimental process, or more of like a DAO, like governance voted thing? Like what are you guys picturing there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Yeah, so we will see how infinity pools are being utilized when we start to get into some of the later phases of Bancor V3. So in Sunrise and Daylight. But for now, I've already revealed during my SmartCon talk that certain strategies are going to be supportable immediately. And so even though this will require a specific contract, and as you point out, yes, I think it will require a DAO vote. One, because it means that the core contributors are going to have to write this contract, and two, there may be certain things that we don't necessarily want to expose users to in terms of the risk. So, like staking, for example, Chainlink in the staking model that the team has presented, it's not entirely risk-free, right? If there is a bad behavior caught, like if you are helping a node operator do something that they shouldn't be doing, then there is a slashing risk associated with that. And so it could be that the contracts that we create in order to allow this kind of external staking, in order to increase the APY for liquidity providers, it should probably be vetted by the DAO, because because in a slashing event like that, I would argue that that is akin to an impermanent loss event, and that the Bancor protocol is going to be on the line for reimbursing users for its losses. So I think that the Bancor DAO should be a part of that decision-making process, and that they should be careful about exactly which things that they want to choose. But I don't think that this is something that we should do in a vacuum. I think that we should be talking to the Chainlink community about where they want their Chainlink staked, for example, and if they have something in mind, something that's trusted. But we also can, Bancor version 3 is sufficiently flexible that we can also decide, what the insurance obligation is of the protocol in a slashing event. So these kinds of things are going to be a big part of the process, and I think that it's going to be, it's not going to be too much of a learning curve. I think that the proposals for these things are going to be relatively simple, and we can be pretty quick to decide on them. But we're also going to discuss it, right, in community calls, what the likely ROI is, how much effort it's going to take, that kind of thing. But yes, in the shortest possible answer I can give to you is that there is something like a YFI yield aggregator built into Bancor version 3, and it will mean that the token liquidity that isn't being used to make markets can be used to do something else.
Okay, and furthermore, I have a question for our panel. Somebody is asking, so V3 sounds like it's going to rely on DAO governance quite a bit. DeFi Dad, Arthur, ChainLinkGod, are there any examples of kind of engagement mining or projects that have utilized the DAO governance process that you're big fans of? And just wanted to get your feedback on that.
That's a tough question. Yeah, Arthur, ChainLinkGod, anything come to mind for you? Like, Tyler, you mean like folks that are being rewarded for probably
like
voting?
Zapper has like quests, I mean,
yeah.
I've been in a lot of DeFi projects personally, and the governance, the votes it's kind of like pooling teeth, and I think some are better than others. Some have councils, some are like Bancor is pretty, I think, pretty purist about it.
I do like the idea of rewarding folks for voting. Actually, the one that does come to mind is that, and I don't know if we're still doing it. I haven't noticed it on some recent votes, but there used to be an allotment of NXM and Nexus for all of our governance votes. And I mean, I can attest. I mean, we always had good showings there, but I also I was never sure if it was just a reflection of, we did have like really what do I want to say, really engaged holders who had a lot of skin in the game, of course, to vote on those proposals. But yeah, I mean, that's possible. I'm not sure if the Zapper model would work, just because it's just so gamified. Like it's such an intense schematic that like Seb and Suhail and them have come up with there. But that's an interesting idea. I don't know why I keep thinking of Curve as you ask this, because it's not the engagement modeling that you're talking about, but the fact that you do have the opportunity to lock up Curve as V Curve and have that voting power, but then also earn more fees. There's just so much wrapped up in that incentivizes those that really want to be there long term, that really have, you know, every reason to vote with the best of intentions and Curve. Anyways, yeah, guys, anything else that's top of mind there?
I'm not sure in terms of like incentivization of actors, but what I've always kind of found intriguing is like the synthetics DAO, or the DAOs kind of synthetics uses, just in terms of having like almost like a board of directors voted in and held to by the token holders. That way you can have almost like a council of experts, you know, driving the most important decisions who are really in the weeds. And if they're ever, you know, not aligned with token holders, they can be voted out and replaced. But that way, those who are actually making the core changes to a protocol are those who are basically doing it as like a full-time job effectively. I've always found that model kind of, you know, it's almost like a reflection of traditional governance structures, but I think it's one that could be fairly effective because everybody who's directly in the changes are, you know, have significant skin in the game and are, you know, technical experts in some regards. So I've always found that model fairly intriguing.
Yeah, because you can be fired. It's awesome, you know, versus with politicians that we're just locked in for however many years with all of them. But
Also,
Arthur, any other thoughts on that? Or sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the fire thing brought up for me. Now the DAO can effectively fire tokens from being kind of whitelisted. Basically, before when in V2.1, the DAO would provide BNT co-investment, and then the pool would just exist at that size, and the token project can kind of just forget about it or, you know, not push it for volume. But now the DAO actually has a little more leverage in V3 in that it can shrink the size of the pools or the size of the market making liquidity in pools and take the BNT that it's co-invested and shift it to pools that are performing better to optimize fees that are getting earned by BNT holders and the protocol. So that just kind of came to mind is I think as the DAO has more agency and its own money is on the line, you know, I think that could also increase engagement too, that it can make these decisions to effectively shrink a pool if a token project maybe isn't, you know, providing rewards or, you know, attaching its buyback to the protocol or, you know, pushing it in their communities and they don't see a lot of traction. We can just sort of divert the BNT where it's more productive. Arthur, do you want to add?
I think nothing much. I will agree with ChainLinkGod. I think that in the long term, a more sustainable model would be to have a lot of delegation, especially on the more day-to-day kind of decision-making power. Because I actually I did highlight this in one of my previous tweets recently that one of the biggest issue facing DAO is the information asymmetry. I don't really see a very good solution to that right now because as an average community member, you do not have the resources and the time to really to understand the whole situation as much as what the so-called insider do. I mean, I categorize insider as the core team and probably some of like the so-called VC like us. So I think delegation is something that is definitely much more sustainable in the future, in the long run. But I think at the same time, you also don't want to let the community be too disengaged that they lost interest. So I think it's really about striking the balance there. So I don't have the magic solution to this, but it's really trying to get the update out on all front and get the community engaged both on I think mainly people use Discord right now. Yeah, I don't think there's a perfect answer to this right now. In fact, I mean, among all the DeFi protocol, I wouldn't say any DAO is like a stellar example. I think the synthetics model is more sustainable. But I mean, that said, a lot of their community members did move on recently. I mean, partially due to price, I guess. So yeah.
I like this. I like this idea of an elected group of folks who, you know, are being compensated and have something to lose there by not being hyper engaged. So yeah, I like where the thinking's going here.
I want to remind everyone who is on the call that Bancor does have a vote delegation system already, and we've kind of already started experimenting with this idea of having, community representatives that are hyper engaged, identify themselves, and they have done so via the discourse page. And so if you want to, if you find that participating in governance is something that is kind of waning on your time, or that you don't feel that you have the knowledge, or the information asymmetry that that Arthur is referring to is bothering you or preventing you from participating, just know that we do have this delegation feature open. And I'm hearing from this conversation that this is something that we need to lean into a lot more. Maybe have qualified voters that have to have delegation or something like that. Like this could be, I think, one of the best ways to integrate some of the feedback that we're getting here.
I want to get Leonid and Yudi in the mix. You guys haven't said much, so I guess firstly, kind of your thoughts on what's been most exciting, challenging as V3 is coming up in terms of just the coding process, and also what you're sort of most excited about. And generally what it's been like to re-architect this system. Would love to just get a few words from you guys.
Sure. So the difference between V3 and every other version that we did since the first version of Bancor is that it's the first time in almost 5 years that we actually rewrite everything from scratch. So for me at least, it's actually the first version which is a real a new complete version that we needed to architect from scratch, and it gave us the opportunity to look at all the different things that we did until now, and explore the different solutions to the problems that we had since the beginning, and kind of lose the backward compatibility.
Yeah. Hey, Arthur, would you mind muting a little bit? I can hear.
You have a lovely keyboard, Arthur. I love these mechanical keyboards. So it's actually the first time that we can look at all the problems that we had since the beginning and rewrite everything. We have this migration process, so we don't need to support to have this backward compatibility layer that we dragged since the first version, and also kind of look at it from a more holistic way that we couldn't do until now. So it's on one hand it's exciting, on the other hand it's tons of work. Rewriting everything from scratch. It's not like even V2.1 was kind of an upgrade, an extension to the system. Now it's the first time that we do everything from scratch. So it's a lot more exciting and a lot more new and interesting opportunities to add all kind of subsystems that we wanted to add for a long time. So that's kind of, I hope I'm not boring you too much with the technical details. But that's,
So I want to add, like Yudi said, everything written from scratch. The infrastructure is completely new. I think Bancor 3 is going to be the most modern, I think, Solidity and event compatible stack out there. We completely revamped how we deploy, how we migrate, how we test everything. It's completely brand, completely, top-notch things. And this is also not only that it was extremely helpful for us to develop with 3, we're going to move so much faster now compared to previous versions. So, we're going to blow all your minds. So stay tuned.
Exciting. And for those who don't know Leonid, he's one of the, I'm told, craziest developers Solidity developers in the world. So so pretty awesome to have you kind of hacking on it full time. And I'm sure it's as advanced as you say it is. Nice. So I want to wrap up pretty soon. Maybe Tyler, did we have, or DeFi Dad, did we have one or two more questions burning?
Yeah, I've got a million, but I can wrap it up. Let's see.
Tyler, how about the one? I feel like the one that keeps coming up is, I think you could distill it down to, if you have VBNT, can you just remind us, if you have VBNT in V2, what will you do in V3? Will it become the just the auto compounding BNT that's like in like an Omni pool, or will they still be holding some equivalent?
Yeah, it's a fair point, and I can see on the YouTube feed that this is something that either I didn't explain well, or has been confused in the chat after I spoke about it. But okay, so when you provide BNT liquidity to Bancor version 3, you're issued a pool token. The same way that if you provide liquidity in Chainlink, you're issued a Chainlink pool token, right? And these pool tokens are very special. They're not the kinds of pool tokens that we invented back in 2016. They're a brand new single-sided pool token that knows the protocol's obligation to its users, right? It's a very different design, I think, to anything else that we've seen up until now. And the BNT pool token is special because just like on version 2.1, when you provide BNT, you get VBNT for your voting rights. On version 3, when you provide BNT, you now get the BNT pool token and VBNT. And the VBNT that you get is one-to-one with the pool tokens that were generated for you. And so the point that I wanted to make about liquidity mining is that because the liquidity mining is accruing on the pool token, if you ever want to withdraw that pool token, you now need to burn an equal number of VBNT. So when you provide, like, let's say it's day 1 of Bancor version 3, and you're providing some BNT liquidity there, it's likely that the pool token is going to be one-to-one with BNT, right? So you provide one BNT, the protocol is going to generate one BNT pool token for you and a VBNT token. But the liquidity mining mechanism, which is now auto compounding, means that the BNT accumulates underneath the pool token. So rather than the pool token being worth 1 BNT in the future, it might be worth 10 BNT in the future due to the compounding of rewards. And if you want to withdraw those 10 BNT, you still need to burn your 1 VBNT, right? Otherwise, the pool token can never be withdrawn. So the mechanism is exactly the same as the kind of thing that we're used to, except that in order to withdraw a pool token, you now need to give back the VBNT. So it's still familiar, right? Everything that we've said previously about how the Vortex works, what the role and relationship between BNT and VBNT is, all of that remains the same, just that we're now referring to the BNT pool token rather than a user position inside a contract. And what this means is, if you hold BNT pool tokens but don't hold the VBNT, then you have no way to access the rewards that those pool tokens represent. And this is the slight difference, right? This is, in a way, the slight concession that we have to pay in order to bring the system back to full fungibility, full composability, is that we no longer have these user positions where we can distribute liquidity mining rewards, without using the pool tokens. And so now that the pool tokens are part of that equation again, you basically need to make sure that you have enough VBNT to withdraw those pool tokens if you want to have a claim to be, in fact, liquidity mining. Otherwise, the rewards are just going to accumulate on those pool tokens. You'll never be able to withdraw them.
Thanks, Mark. That actually clarifies it for me. So if you have VBNT, you're in a good place.
Yeah, if you kept your VBNT, you're fine. And you're never going to need to buy, additional VBNT. That will never happen.
Yeah.
It just means that if because the Vortex and the way that it works was really intended as like a fast credit system, where, if you need fast cash, you can quickly swap VBNT for something else and then come back later and repurchase the VBNT to resecure your BNT position. But because of liquidity mining, a small but significant proportion of the community worked out that they could just sell VBNT and buy more BNT and just keep compounding that in order to get more and more rewards that way. So essentially, that type of system is no longer going to function on version 3, because if you don't have the VBNT, you can't get the rewards out of it.
I just want to add that you don't actually need your BBNT when you migrate your positions from V2.1 to V3. It's not a requirement if you deposited it in the BBNT pool or sold it, but you still need that in order to withdraw your V3 position. Mm-hmm.
And also in terms of migration, we're not just enabling migration from V2.1 to V3. We'll of course have a vampire attack button built in, so you'll be able to migrate your liquidity from Uniswap, SushiSwap, and other AMMs directly into V3 pools. All right. I think we're just about at time. Been on for a while, and want to reiterate.
Yeah, I'll just say I'll spend the week trying to get back to the community on all their questions. I've got like 100 in a list right now, but I'll get back on Twitter and Telegram, and I'll engage with Mark and Yudi and Leonid, and I'll try to answer everyone's questions throughout the week.
Yeah, and if you're new to to the Bancor project, just be aware that we do have community calls every week, and I have a feeling that the next dozen are going to be discussing, elements of version 3 and a lot of the things that we've spoken about today. So if there was something that maybe, that you were interested in discussing but didn't get the opportunity, or something that you think needs further clarification, don't be shy. Please come and join our community call. I promise you, all of the questions that you have, there are going to be thousands of other community members that want to know exactly the same thing. So I encourage you to join that community call. I think that discussing Bancor version 3, the features, what it's going to look like, and how we're going to interact with it are going to be first and foremost the priority of discussion over the next few weeks. So if you have an urgent matter or something that you really want to know about, join the call. I promise you we will talk with you for as long as is required.
So guys, thank you. I want to
just before we wrap up, quick reminder that we're looking for people, more Solidity developers, marketing people. If you know anyone that's really, really good at what they do, contact us in the different channels. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I also want to add thank you to Arthur, DeFi Dad, ChainLinkGod, and everyone on the call today. You guys are the lifeblood of Bancor, not just of Bancor, but of DeFi. We need broad participation in liquidity markets in order to keep them decentralized. We need easy access and for these products to be profitable for everyday users. If it just becomes a game for professional market makers and whales, liquidity gets centralized in the hands of a few. So it's kind of up to us to, maintain these decentralized liquidity markets, and excited to roll out a even easier protocol to use in V3, and also to just kind of see it explode. We really think it has all the right ingredients to do that. So that's it. Thank you guys so much. We're going to wrap up here, and we'll see you out there.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.